I'm not preaching. That's me. We'll just put it somewhere. It seems to be
I mean, I find that we could use for the directory.
Was that on the deck this morning?
And I thought, let's see,
And I saw
figure out what it is. Oh, no.
Was it a wasp?
Oh, it hurts so bad when it's right next to the bone.
I know, it's somebody else.
Joel has an announcement that I'm sure we all want to hear, so.
Patty's put on the bulletin board back here. Our bulletin board has been moved, and it's back here between these two rooms on the hallway. If interested as a liturgist or an acolyte, you can sign up there to assist in the worship on Sunday, so we don't have to go around recruiting at 11:15.
Then if you don't sign up, we'll start calling you. And putting you down.
Better check it at 11:14. Yeah.
Or you'll just get grabbed as an emergency
That's right.
kind of person.
Thank you.
I thought what we would do today is look at some of the problems that we have in relationships, and those relationships can be personal, and I'm certainly not going to be Ann Landers or anybody like that and offer personal relationship advice, but with organizations that we're involved with, it's sometimes very hard to know how to let your opinion be made known, or how to effectively work, because organizations do have a bigger voice than individuals quite often. So if we want to have a big impact, quite often what we have to do is we have to join with other people. So that presents its own class of problems. How many times have you joined an organization but you wear out? You give up fairly soon because you realize that this is not what you thought it was, and you don't see any way to possibly make it better. So does anybody have an experience like that?
I have been asked to join things before that I knew that I did not have the time to devote to what their organization did. I have done that before, for sure.
I have felt a little bit like that on committees in this church that I've been on. I have felt like, this is a little more than I thought I had bitten off.
Or if you look at the Methodist Church as a whole, as this block, how are you ever going to move or change that? And if you are sometimes constrained by what the discipline says, or if you are constrained by the district rules, you may feel like it's a losing game. The first part of this handout is struggling with Christianity. And I found the very first thing interesting. if Jesus himself says the church is falling into ruin, I guess we can admit it also without being accused of being negative or unbelieving. Maybe we have to admit it for anything good to happen. And that, I think, is one of the problems that we face. I have been parts of organizations where I kept quiet rather than cause a stir or cause any kind of attention to be drawn to me and my idea. But I just would go home and stew about it, but I wouldn't say it out loud. Where I should have said it out loud. Well,
Some
Jesus,
people, me for one, have gone through life occasionally, not real often, but there have been a few times in my life when I have opened my mouth and swallowed my knee and thought, why did I say that?
well, maybe it was spontaneous and it should have
It
come
was
out.
spontaneous, but I don't know that it should have come.
Okay.
But I don't know if any of you have experienced that kind of thing, but I am now in this old age trying to not do that, trying to think before I speak.
Shasta, what did you have?
I was just gonna say, it's, especially growing up in a Baptist tradition, it's almost ironic because my whole life they've said that the church is dying, but it's because people are falling into the ways of the world instead of looking at the structure of the church and seeing if there's any issues within it. They just think it's because that, Satan has something greater to offer in a temporary morale. So I think it's just kind of ironic that it's that kind of juxtaposition. Instead of looking inward, they decided the problem was outward.
But I think, and it's hard to do sometimes, a lot of times, but if you find disagreement with the organization or something, it's good to step back and be reflective of yourself and think, am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to lessen up on my feelings,
Right.
If we all just stick to the idea that we're correct,
Well,
that's
if we
why the churches have a problem.
if we look at this, I just jotted down some struggles to have a better relationship. The first thing is how to listen. Make sure you've got your facts straight and that you haven't filtered it through your own bias, because we all have some ways of looking at the world that may not be exactly right. We may all be a little bit deaf or colorblind or whatever it is, so that we don't see the world exactly the way other people do. And the second thing is how to be heard. Well, there's lots of different ways to be heard. Can you be heard through your actions as well as through your voice?
Yeah, absolutely. But sometimes actions don't present the whole picture.
Sometimes they're too subtle.
Mm-hmm. But if you blip forth with your whole opinion, what is your risk? What are you likely to do if you give your opinion of how this organization should be run?
You won't be heard. I think your reputation, to a degree, does precede you in whatever you do. I think one of the greatest compliments that someone can say is like they truly live out, so-and-so truly lives out their faith, or, so-and-so does what they believe. Because there's so many that I know within the community that even though they're active in church, their actions outside of church don't always match that, just in the negative way that they treat others. And that tends to deflect people. I know people that's like, oh, so-and-so goes to that church, I wouldn't go to that church because of how they act, if that's what they're preaching.
sometimes they see only the picture of the smaller church
Yeah.
and not the picture of the organizational church in whole. How much do we know about Encore?
About Encore,
Mm-hmm.
its reputation is good.
Mm-hmm.
They actually administer the funds and distribute them, or how they choose what to support.
I read something that I found as a good commentary on Encore. It said, and I think this was somewhere in the United States where there had been a massive hurricane or a tornado. They said Encore is always the first to arrive and the last to leave.
And I think they don't have separate administrative costs like a lot of the charities have to have, because it's operated within the Methodist,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, bureaucracy, hierarchy, whatever you want to call it.
My understanding is that's correct, 100%. When you give to Encore for a specific cause, 100% of that goes directly to that need. And I think the way they help pay their administrative costs is through general conference funds, as well as our appropriations, as well as I think there's an Encore Sunday that also helps to cover some of the administrative fees, so that when you give to a hurricane or Russia's war in the Ukraine, that it goes directly to that specific need, which is unlike any other charity out there.
And when you read how much the head of the Red Cross makes as a salary, that brings that difference home.
Yes, whenever Ukraine war started, and we were donating, somebody said, give it to Encore, and they will help. I looked up and found what information I could online and put in a newsletter about Encore, because I didn't know that, and what he said is exactly what I put in that newsletter, that, you know, they make up their administrative costs other ways than what you or I may donate, and that's very real, I think.
They also are very ongoing in everything. They don't just help a hurricane situation or a war. They have a constant, through the years, ongoing places and people and ways where they help. So that's maybe part of why they're always right there with some sort of organization in almost any part of the world, I guess.
I think they're ready to go.
They're ready to go.
I think what's important about what everyone is saying is they've researched it. And so many times we want to jump into being a part of something or being involved in something, and we haven't adequately researched it or know what they're actually doing, like giving to Red Cross. And I don't support some of the other charity organizations just because of things I've heard. We had a place in Columbia that a lot of people were donating to, and then all of a sudden it came out that the man who was the owner of that organization was living high and mighty. You know, his wife was driving an expensive car, and they had a nice home, and so he was profiting from that. And I was quick to tell people, when I donate anything, it does not go to that organization because of that.
That we found out about, like, that would be the same way that the Jim and Tammy Faye Baker situation, and people were giving their life savings, thinking this is a godly man, and this is a godly couple, and I want to build the kingdom, you know, and they were giving all this money, and then look what happened. And the man's doing it again. After spending time in jail, he's doing it again with a new wife.
Well, don't you think that a lot of that is what undermines the people's belief in the church?
Yes,
the organizations?
absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons we're having problems. It's just one, but I do think that has contributed to it.
Well, back to Encore just a minute. Our congregation up through, I guess this is through, April, not May, has donated $3,620 to Encore,
Isn't that something?
which I think is interesting.
For a small church.
Yeah.
So that proves that we can do the research from what I've heard. We are capable of, but a lot of things we don't know about, and I think maybe might be interesting to learn about, are things about our individual church too, as well as how we contribute to Encore. Why did this church start? And when did it start? And Susan has agreed to help me with doing some research with that. She's found
I just found the old 1971 yearbook,
so
and it's really interesting.
and you
You're right there.
Oh, yeah.
founded,
I've been here since 1966.
when was it founded? We'll wait.
we'll wait.
We'll suspense.
1776 or something.
Before 1971.
Yes.
So a little bit of history might be helpful, because you wonder sometimes, why do people join churches that they join? Is it because they are dissatisfied with the church that they were in? And what is their reason for that? And so,
Like that one reason this church was founded is we're in a Baptist heaven here. And there was a need for a Methodist church. I would be willing to bet that's one of the reasons.
why not Presbyterian?
I don't know.
I can say that because I've tried them all.
And finally Episcopalian.
So stay tuned.
They made it through us.
And
We have them.
bring your old, if you've saved them, bring your old church directories, and we'll have some reminisce kind of Sunday, next Sunday.
The Baptist church that I grew up in, was very, very big, I was born in 50. And when I reached high school and college age, it was extremely big. And somehow in my mind, I remember it as being quite rigid. Someone invited me to come to the Methodist church. And I think I was at the end of my high school year, so this was, mid-60s, and then I came here a few times, went back to the Baptist church a time or two, and then eventually, over the years, kept coming back to the Methodist church. And we grew to a large fellowship.
Yes, we'll have a.
We'll come to that. So shut up.
JoAnn, I think so many of us are sadly lacking in having a full understanding of the discipline of the Methodist Church and what the whole organization supports. I know I am not fully aware, especially now that I've moved here, of what our district and what this area focuses on.
I think we will make our presentation based on what this particular church and its history is over the time that we know. Because that, I think, is how most people make choices of where to go to church. It's not that I support the Methodist doctrine and that I've studied it and I know what I'm doing.
But I think the Methodist doctrine now, because of the split, has become more obvious, and people are a bit more, I don't know if you want to say interested or involved in caring about what the Methodist Church stands for. And, like we said, our opinions, my personal opinion is that the global church has got it all wrong. But I'm sure their opinion is that I've got it all wrong.
Yeah.
Y'all take those scrapbooks. You can glean a whole lot from those scrapbooks we made.
And the next thing is, how do you find common ground? how do you manage to find out what you agree on versus what you disagree on, and then to decide which is the most important?
That's partly where listening comes in.
Yes, that's where listening comes in.
Well,
You know,
everybody.
so much has been made of finding common ground. And I really struggle with that because we can all agree on something, but your idea of fixing it is A, your idea of fixing it is B, C, D. Well, if you can't come to an agreement on how to fix it, you can still have 8 different methods of resolving it and never get anywhere.
That's why organizational structure is so important. And in a team, you have a coach. In a school, you have a principal. In a government, you have town managers, governors, and you have then presidents. And so in each of those cases, I think you are following the leader, at least in part, because even though you do not share maybe the immediate concerns of one of those leaders, you have a history of knowing where the country is going or where the team is going that makes you be willing to subvert whatever it is that your particular project is to fix it, and maybe hang in. And I think that's sort of where we are in the church, and I think it's sort of where we are in the nation. We're hanging in because we think and believe that there is a reason to do that. There is a better way that may emerge. That there is, yes.
Oh, you finish your
No,
thought.
I'm through.
So, this sounds a little odd, but we had this training on how to get someone to trust you at work. Because of the fact, we have parents and clients that come from backgrounds of abuse and places where they've not had the ability to trust others. So we took this training on how to kind of gain people's general trust. And what you do in order to find common ground is you start, I call it like kind of out in left field a little bit. You pick something you find common ground about that's not even related to it. So like, what TV shows are you watching right now? Where's your favorite place to get ice cream? Like, you pick something very broad and general that's not easily arguable, and then you kind of map inwards to finding a little more as you have this conversation and get to the point. So you've already sort of spent this time with them, and you're gaining their trust slowly before you get to the initial issue. Because for us, if you jump right into the initial issue, it usually just triggers like a hot button. And then you're there, and it's tense and heated and almost nuclear.
I think to Shasta's point and also Judy's point, and I may mess up this quote, but John Wesley had a quote that was, though we all may not think alike, and we all may not talk alike, can we all not pray alike? Which I think is really interesting in the context of the United Methodist Church right now. And more recently, even with the global church being formed, it was just this past week in Florida, they had the deacons and elders up for their commission in the Florida Annual Conference, which currently Archbishop Ken Carter is serving both Western North Carolina, which is his home conference, and the Florida Annual Conference. And at the Florida Annual Conference, when it came time for their commissioning during the clergy session, all of the clergy had sort of a block vote. They get to vote all of those in who are going to be commissioned, or they get to say nay to all of them. And because there were LGBTQIA individuals who were part of those being commissioned, they decided, I believe, I can't remember if it was 15 or 17, but they decided to block vote all of those who were going to be commissioned as an elder or as a deacon in the United Methodist Church in the Florida Annual Conference out. So they will not be commissioned this year. It may come in a future year, but it leads them they may have just graduated. They may have planned to be going to a church or something of that nature, and that won't be happening now. At a time when we're seeing more and more pastors and people in a church retire and or come out of their ministry in recent years.
So they chose to take a stand about that, which is one way of getting your message to a group. And you have to find a way to sometimes get a message out, or how to grow. And this finding common ground, sometimes it can be as simple as looking at this back page, which is using the word "and" in preference to using the word "but." Those are two conjunctions that are found all over the place. And you can hear yourself saying some of these, like, I love you and I am going to help you. That's one. Or, I love you, but I am not going to assist you in finding food, is another way. When we put the "but" on the end of the sentence, it usually weakens the first part of the sentence. And when we put the "and" on as the conjunction, it usually strengthens that statement, whatever it was. I can hear myself saying to my children sometimes, I love you, but I'm not going to let you do such and such, which to them was the most important part. That I'm not going to let you do such and such was not, did not foster feelings of love with them, I'm sure.
What if it had come out, I love you and I'm not gonna let you do? Would that have changed how they felt about it, do you think? I love you and I love you and I'm not gonna let you go to.
Ride on those four-wheelers your friends want you to ride on.
A motorcycle, no.
Yes.
But you like the "and" puts a positive slant on it, but.
It softens the blow. But we need to be more aware of how we say things.
How many of you have been talking, usually it's to your children when they're growing up, and you say something and then they'll say, here comes the but, here comes the but, because
Here comes the what?
the but. But, you'll say, you know, like what JoAnn was talking about, you say, now, I blah, 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 but, but, no way are you gonna do so and so.
B-U-T-T.
No. But they would say, I have heard at least one of my children, maybe both of them, say, here comes the but, which means we're not gonna get to do this.
And quite often it's, I love you, but I can't help you. Maybe I can help you, but I'm just trying to justify what I'm not going to be willing to do.
Well, you're trying to keep them safe and alive and growing up. And you have to make those decisions because they aren't quite old enough to make good decisions yet.
My pediatrician used to tell my sons those kinds of things. He would say, no way are you going to ride a skateboard, or no way are you going to ride a motorcycle. I didn't have to say anything, but
That's great.
he took care of that.
Yeah.
See, my mother did it backwards. It's, I'm not gonna let you do that, but I love you.
So how did that make you feel? How did you take that?
Well, because it was just me and her for so long, my parents divorced when I was 3, and my stepdad came into the picture when I was like 12 or 13, so there's like, a good 8 or 9 year span, and it's just the two of us. And so even though it's like this, the parent and the child, it felt like this to me, and I was like, now listen, Mom, here, it's time to renegotiate these terms.
Yeah, I can say to Scott, I love you, but I I'm not happy about you not having your shots for COVID. You know, and I do that to my half sister too. I'll say the same thing to her. You know, I love you, but you know, I don't like that you not had your shot either.
Well, you know, I've said this to somebody I was very close to. I love you, but I don't like you right
That's
this
right.
minute.
Oh, no, that's
I don't like you.
I do not like you right this minute. I do not like you.
I think if we use the word "and" after "I love you," and I am going to help you do such and such.
That's like Susan said, and that does soften it.
Mm-hmm. And I think when people come to visit the church, what do we want to say? We say, "Oh, we're so glad you're here." But what else can we say that would be a way to get them involved?
Ask them to play handbells. That's what I listen to every time, and so it'll do it every time.
First time I was here. Do you want to play handbells? I'm like, I got no rhythm.
She's still trying to talk you into it.
Oh my gosh, listen, I think there's been 4 times now, and I'm like, Lucy, I just ain't got it.
And I'm sure the next thing she said was, I'll teach you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll teach you, because she has said that to many people.
And it's work.
And it's worked.
So what else can we do other than utilize Lucy?
Well, I mean, you guys, when I first came here, I really liked, but I'm from a family that's got, you know, some like up in your business roots. So I love how you guys were like, so where do you live? What do you do? Are you a student? Are you working? Do you have any pets, boyfriend, girlfriend? What you got?
So you're a little nosy in a good way.
I love it, but that's also how my family operates. Like, we all live on the same street, so I'll head out in my car, and my grandma will call me, and she'll be like, so where are you going?
Well, to express an interest in people, I think that's is a good thing. I know there are different ways to do that.
Oh, yeah, I love
Not
it.
being just nosy. But
Well, you
When
know,
I'm introducing myself to somebody who's new here, I will say to them, we're a small church, but we are very mighty. We do a lot of things, I think, good things for the church, for the community, for the members. We do wonderful things, and you need to come back. You need to find out about us, because we have a wonderful music program, but that's not the only thing that's good about the church. We are it's a family here to me. And when I'm gone traveling, I miss this. Last Sunday was not Sunday to me. It was just, I missed y'all. And I was looking, you know, playing games on my phone or doing something silly, and I'd think, oh, they're in Sunday school. They're sitting around the table, they're talking, they're having discussion, and I'm not with them, you know.
Go online.
Well, I should have. But sometimes it's awkward when you're in a family member's home and they are not going to church. You just kind of.
You set a good example.
Well, they know how I feel and they know how I act.
And I think we must also make room for, and we do, I think, for the people who prefer to sit on the back row and would like to be less, yes. And Ann sits further back than I do.
Yeah, she sits way back.
She's halfway out the door.
Roger with it, but I still like to sit back there.
And I think there are people who like that kind of anonymity and quiet, and we need to let them know that we see them and we recognize them. And I especially feel for the young man who's the student at Morris Hill College who sits on the back row.
yes. You know, he didn't come last Sunday. He was gone somewhere though. Somebody told me he was gone. He was meeting his friends.
Oh, good. Yeah.
That might be good, and that might not be good because he may have other places to go on Sunday now.
Well, I think he's staying or spending a lot of time with Paula and Paula, right?
That's what she said. He's got an apartment now, or whatever,
Okay.
so.
What is his name?
Clemens is all, I made up.
Is that his last name?
No, that's his Clemens.
Clement, M-E-N-T.
Oh, Clement. Oh, okay.
I've got it written down, but I can't pronounce it.
Well,
I had it,
I'm
but I
sending
don't
you
know.
a newsletter on getting
Okay.
I don't know how to pronounce the last name. It's, first name's Clinton,
And he's from Johnson.
but
Yes.
You wanted to say something, Judy?
I do. When you were trying to suggest something that we say to people when they're new, I think that, and I think Heath would probably agree with me, a very harmless but useful to us piece of information is, and how did you find out about us? How did you happen to come here today? And so that's a pretty harmless thing to ask someone, and that kind of feedback will tell us volumes.
Right. We've had people to come here because of our little sign out front.
Yeah.
It tells everything about our being inclusive, and that, I think, is a good thing.
You're
Right. Or if we hear about people who found us online, like Donna.
Diane.
That's
Yes,
right.
like
That's
Margaret.
right. Margaret and Diana Simmons. Yes. Both of them.
Well,
Well, Mary Lou, did you find us online?
Yes, but, I'd already moved here and I was gonna come to Methodist Church.
Oh, okay. But it was helpful.
Oh, it was definitely helpful. I
Yeah, right.
was pleasantly surprised that this was not a very conservative, straight-laced.
Yeah.
What, we're not
No,
concerned.
we're about the furthest thing from
Yeah.
that.
And that could open up volumes because they could tell you where they were from, how long they've been here, and then other questions and other conversation can
And
flow
like
from.
JoAnn was saying,
that.
some people want to be left alone and want their, but on the
How
other
do you
hand,
know?
some people are shy.
Mm-hmm.
I have gone through stages in my life when I was very shy. And I guess when I first came to this church, I was very shy.
You
And I was
were.
one of those people who would have not been on the back row, but I wouldn't have been outgoing. And at the time, it would probably help me if some people would talk to me.
Well, this is a very friendly church. I mean, I've
that helps.
gone to, various small Methodist churches over the years that were not nearly this friendly. And I'm not an outgoing person, but it really, I felt so welcome the first Sunday I came. Because, of course, Lucy asked me to play handbells. And, but everybody came up to me, I got a mug, and it was, I've been to churches where nobody spoke to you. You had this kind of, like you felt like you didn't belong there or something. But that really was nice, even for somebody who was introverted.
I don't like to talk too much, but the church that I go to sometimes, did go to sometimes in Arlington, it's a big church. It's actually one that Wally and Emily used to go to years ago. But that church was not a warm church. I know one person, I know two people in that church, and I've been going up there for how many years now? 6 years, 8 years, something like that. But there was never any warmth or real friendliness or, why don't you come to Methodist Women, or we're meeting on, there was no contact like that. You went in, you went out, the preacher maybe would say hello, but that was pretty much it.
That's like going to a big university, you're a digit. Whereas Mars Hill, I felt like the professors got to know you by name.
I think one way, especially for like my age group, to sort of interact with someone, even if you don't know if they're like shy or awkward, and especially to see if they kind of fit in with the culture here, is to ask them what their pronouns are. So like, hi, my name is Shasta, my pronouns are she, her, what's your name and your pronouns? And it lets them know that we're an inclusive space and that we honor their pronouns. And
I don't know how to do that, Shasta.
you just say, hi, I'm Colleen, my pronouns are she, her, what's your name and your pronouns?
So let me say that some people find that offensive.
Yeah.
And I know the younger generation is it's not the same.
I was gonna say, that's kind of an age-related thing.
Yes.
It's like asking your age.
And that I respect that.
You don't have to, you just look at the
That
hair.
drives me nuts. My granddaughter has corrected me. Oh, Grand. And I said, wait a minute. That is over my head.
You said, I love you. But
I love you. That's right. That's one of those buts for me. I'm not offended except when you correct me and tell me I've done something wrong because of a pronoun. Yeah, come on. That's not.
It's just how someone wants to be addressed.
I know, but that is a your generation
I
thing.
think but it's a good thing, it's fine, and it's appropriate for you to do that. It would look awkward, it would look like I was trying to be something different.
Exactly, and my kids and grandkids have said that, you know, because I tried to use some with it kind of word. And it was so awkward coming out of my mouth, and it was so awkward in their ear.
Yeah.
So not only do we dress appropriately, we speak age appropriately.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know, instead of asking people that, you give off vibes of how you feel about people. I'm not just vibes. And if you accept people for what they are, and you know, it doesn't matter what age somebody is, it doesn't matter what gender they take on. Whatever, you're a human being and you just love and accept them. You don't have to ask all those questions. You just the way you act toward people. Really is a story to me. Well, and if it's genuine, if you really feel that way, you know, if you really do.
I think that's what comes through loud and clear. It's the body language.
Our actions speak maybe louder than our words.
And we have to understand that society is always changing. It's not only a generational thing, but I know being associated with advising in a university, a large university, there's always going to be awkward moments because there's things you are not aware of. I'm not aware of that the student is trying to. I know I had that come up with several of my students, the pronoun issue and the gender issue. And we had to have classes in how to handle that. We had to do special instruction into how you go about talking to a student who has gender issues or any issue.
As long as we are genuine and what I am interested in is you.
Right.
Yeah,
The rest is sort of
none of our business sometimes.
It's not as important as the genuine interest that you have in another person. If I care about you.
You can tell someone and they can feel the fact that you are going to accept them. You don't have to know the pronouns, I don't think, to accept them on their terms, whatever those are. I accept a person the way they are.
You don't ask people their finances or gender or age. You just accept people like they are. If somebody's extremely poor and comes to church, you treat them the same as if somebody's dressed in the latest outfit. Or if somebody has a different gender, who cares? Just let people be people.
It's just more of a nod of respect to them. Like I'm sure as a teacher, being addressed as Miss Kramer, it's different than being like, yo, Connie, it's just kind of under that same.
Well, thank you for pointing that out as an alternative, and I think it will make us be more aware of how we address people.
And if it's natural for you to say that. Yes. Or somebody tells you that they want to be called, then you respect that.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad Shasta is here to help us.
Bring us to the
to say, and y'all been in this situation. I haven't, except with my grandchild. And it was always that, but how to do this. And I know to you it's easy.
Well, it's just the intention of it. People will purposefully just ignore it, and it's almost like I don't think enough of you to listen to how you ask. It's like, I don't know, a good example is, like if someone, you know, if you're getting coffee for someone and they're like, I want creamer, and you just load it up with creamer and you hand it to them, you know, that kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
I told you this, you didn't listen. I mean, there's obviously times you'll forget and put a little splash of creamer, and they're like, it happens, you know. But if you just do it every time, it's almost like you're not listening, you know.
Yeah.
Well, that's the key, listening.
Well,
Okay.
keep us straight on that. Keep us straight. We're old. We're not, and we need to know these new things.
Older.
Pronouns or whatever.
Older.
Listen,
Older.
I am there.
I don't say old, I say I.
You just had a birthday.
I know, when you had a birthday as big as this.
So tune in next Sunday for some history lessons. Hope you have a
Listen,
good
I
week.
have got a lot of old directories, and I'll bring, but y'all truly, when we began those scrapbooks, and I had a big part in that, a lot of the beginning of this church is in that first scrapbook, so y'all take those and look at them. There's a lot of history in there.
And the Methodist Church was a bit different then as a doctrine. And there was fear of hellfire and damnation in some groups that were immediately around at least. Good.
Sounds a little straight.
Yeah.
Well, we've changed over there.
And there was something about a female.
We're gonna have another
They met for a while.
You know, he wrote it back. She left me, she left me a couple of messages on my phone. I haven't
Yeah, you
called
said
her.
it. Wow. How about that?
We have to practice what we're preaching in here.
We do, that's what I just.
Around here.
Yeah, we're
Where one box out of
in the shed.
the shed, and it seems like there may be some in that cabinet over there.
Yeah, and there's some in the fire.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
We may need help.
How are all of you?
Could we do one thing?
Okay, let me know if you have
So maybe Susan and I will work together.
Everybody's good. We're off. Alan's off.
Give me a topic.
Northern states, up in Minnesota and North Dakota and the bogs. I know. He's loving it. He's seeing all sorts of good stuff. That's just you know, thinking about this church, as long as we've all been here, it's just an odd feeling of how it's all passed through the years.